Hi, and welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. Hey, have you ever noticed that when you keep explaining yourself, people actually stop feeling led? And they do this not because your ideas are bad ideas or poor ideas or because you lack intelligence. They do it because our authority actually doesn't grow when what we do all the time is verbally reassure people. It grows, our authority grows through clarity. It grows through clarity. Now, many capable leaders they'll turn up to a team meeting or that they'll present themselves with really strong thinking. They'll present that in a really direct way. And then what they do is they cushion it. They start to justify it and they put lots of soft language around it. And almost immediately, down goes their authority. Down it goes. So when what we do is we give more context, when we give more justification, when we give more reassurance, when we check to make sure everybody is comfortable, this is where, without even realizing it, things start to shift. And the decisions that we've made kind of seem to be a little bit negotiable. And our conviction and our passion about what we're doing and our desire to bring everybody else with us almost seems a little bit optional as well, because everybody starts to respond to the tone of your voice and not the content. And so over-explaining really improves understanding. In fact, sometimes it can add to it. And also what it does is it reveals that there's an anxiety on the speaker's part that maybe I'm a bit concerned about how the message will land. Executive and leadership authority, it's not communicated through how much you say. It's actually communicated through how confidently you can stop talking. I'm Beth Bergen. I'm a global leadership and communication coach. Join me to talk about how to become more precise in your communication. But first, what we need to do is to understand why the instinct to over-explain is so strong. So our first talking point today is this: over-explaining is often a fear-based response. Our brain, it's trained to look for safety, so it will always default to safety. So if we're in a situation where we're feeling as though, maybe people are disagreeing with what we're saying, and we get that vibe, then what our brain naturally defaults to is upping the explanation. We do that because we don't want to be rejected, so we do it to reduce the rejection risk. And what's really interesting is that we think that the more words we use, the more control we're likely to show others that we have of the situation. We think that, others will perceive we've got our act together here. And in actual fact, that justification is a defense mechanism. It's very clearly signals uncertainty, particularly if we go on and on and on. The less we say, the more authority we're likely to bring. Less with clarity, not lots and lots of justification. Then that brings us to the second point, which is that justification dilutes that decisiveness. When we're a strong leader, we're simply going to state what our decision is. If we're feeling uncertain and we're a bit of an over-explainer, then what we'll do is we'll state it, and then, as I said earlier, we'll start to weaken it. We'll weaken it with statements like, oh, look, I was just thinking that maybe we can, this might be a bit silly, but, oh, look, sorry, I know it's really obvious. Or, does this make sense? Now, they're just 4 examples of the kinds of statements that we use that actually weaken. And every one of those statements are the kinds of things that they land on others in a way that reduces the confidence that they see that we have. And so what happens is that our delivery actually lowers the strength of the message because, as I've said, the justification dilutes the decisiveness. One of the things that's really important, and this is point 3, one of the things that's really important is that we let go of the need to be understood or to fill in time. Both of these things are reasons that our authority goes down. We think we're being thorough when we over-explain. We think we're being thorough. And for us, well, if I'm being thorough, then I'm looking really competent here. We find the thought of being misunderstood almost threatening. Well, I don't want people to misunderstand me. That wouldn't be okay. I want to be here sharing my request, sharing my decision, so that everybody goes away saying, oh, that was fantastic. And so what happens is that we shift into the identity of the over-explainer. And we shift into that identity because it protects this feeling that we have, oh, well, she's pretty intelligent, he's really fair. And what happens is that because we're doing that over-explaining, we're feeding into this need to be understood. The second need that we fill up all the time is we talk into silence to cover this feeling of being awkward. Oh, this feels a bit awkward. No one's saying anything. Yeah. So we talk, and often what we say has nothing to do with anybody. It doesn't really add anything to the decision that you've made or the conversation, except potentially it adds a whole lot of misunderstanding. Now, as you mature as a leader, as you develop your leadership intelligence, you will learn to tolerate some of that misunderstanding. And this is really important. The reason it's so important is because when you can tolerate some misunderstanding, you're giving your team the opportunity to ask clarifying questions for themselves. So you're building that skill of curiosity, which is so important. The other thing is that you're allowing the silence just to sit there. Because authority is actually really grounded. It's not about being over-clarified. It's just this groundedness. So it's important that you look seriously at letting go of that need to be understood or that need to fill in time. The fourth point I want to talk to today is this one. Over-explaining creates cognitive overload, sometimes known as overwhelm. Yeah? Our brain just simply gets overloaded. Our decision makers and our implementers, the people who are going to go and implement the decision that you've made, they absolutely value clarity. Absolutely value clarity. So it's your responsibility to give them that clarity. because those long-winded explanations create a whole lot of extra noise in their brain. That's the cognitive overload that we're talking about. And when there's noise in the brain or cognitive overload kicks in, key points get lost. People miss the things that are really important or that you think are really important simply because we didn't share them with them in a way that landed for them. We shared them with them, but not in a way that landed for them because it was in amongst too many other things. Precision is what increases your influence. So bring it back down smaller. And in a minute, I'll share some tools with you to help you to do this, but bring it down smaller so you've got that clarity, you've got that precision. That's really important. The fifth point I want to talk into is this. It's important that you strengthen your communication to build your authority, and to build your influence. So follow a structure. Now, I know because my clients tell me this all the time. I know that it feels really weird to have a bit of a structure to your communication. But if what you're able to do is to learn to action that structure and you use it, quite quickly it will become the norm for you. So it might sound a bit clunky to begin with. You can put your own words around it, but think about what you're going to say. So the sort of structure that would be useful for you to follow to prevent over justification or over explaining. What's the issue? What are you recommending? What's the rationale? Those three things: issue, recommendation, rationale. And then stop. It takes maturity to stop. We already talked about that. It's not about the history, the backstory, the internal debate you've been having with yourself, the conversation you had with three others the other day, bit of a disclaimer if it goes all wrong. Yeah, no. The issue, the recommendation, and the rationale. That structure will actually reduce your urge to justify. And what we'll see with one of the tools I've given you is that the fact that you haven't over-explained it opens the door for people to be able to ask you questions that give them the kind of clarity that they need. And as I said earlier, that's all about encouraging that curiosity, building that curiosity skill. Okay, 2 tools that I've got for you today. The first one is the 3-sentence rule. And this is all about, this kind of follows on from that structure I was talking about earlier. So when you're presenting an idea, 3 things, 1 sentence for each. State the decision or the position. Here's the decision. Give the primary reason, and then state the expected outcome. So your job before the meeting, before the conversation, is to actually prepare those 3 sentences. And after you've said the 3 of them, pause. Pause. It'll feel a little bit awkward, but we've already talked about that. There's a real power to your pause. And the silence in this case talks to your confidence. The awesome thing is that when you've done 1 sentence for each of those things, if there are any questions or you're challenged, you're able to explain into the deeper information related to each thing, the deeper information related to the decision, a secondary or even a 3rd or 4th reason for making the decision, and then some additional outcomes if you need to. But you've got that framework. And what that means is that you're much less likely to be defensive, which is often when we've given them all the information, often that information carries with it from us the expectation that people are going to get it. So when they ask questions, we can be, oh, really? You've got questions? I thought I did a great job of explaining that. So it saves us from being defensive. So that's the first tool. The second tool is looking at auditing some of your filler phrases. And this is things like, I really want you just for 1 week to actually notice these fillers that you use to soften your conversation. So it's things like just, things like sorry, things like maybe, oh, I think, or does that make sense? So notice them. Notice how often you say them and remove 50% of them. Now that seems easy, but it's actually quite hard, because the more you notice them, the more of them there will be, and to remove 50% of them will require quite a deliberate action on your part. The less fillers you have, the more authority you will have. So that's a great reason for you to actually be thinking about doing this. Take just out. Take sorry out. Take maybe out. Take, oh, I think. You think or you know. Does this make sense? There are awesome positive phrases that you can replace all of those with. So notice them and take 50% out. Okay, we've got a couple of reflection questions for you now, remembering that the reflection questions are very much around encouraging you to sit and do that honest self-reflection, because self-awareness is a really positive driver in your personal growth and also in the building of your skill set and your intelligence as a leader. So I don't put these questions up just to give you something to go, well, don't want to answer that. These are here so that you can actually do that honest reflection. So I've got 2 here today. The first one is this: when I over-explain, what am I trying to protect? When I over-explain, what am I trying to protect? Is it my credibility? Is it my likability? Is it my certainty? Or is it something else? It doesn't have to be one of those 3. Now, as I've said to you, ask the question and then come back again. Oh, what else? And what else? Yeah? It's a great question and will help you moving forward. The second reflective question is this one: what would my communication sound like if I fully trusted my expertise? What would my communication sound like if I fully trusted my expertise? What we know from what we've talked about today is that over-explaining is often an anxiety response. It comes from fear. So if you fully trusted your expertise, if you were prepared to apply these new skills that I've just shared with you, these new tools that I've just shared with you, what would your communication sound like? Have a think about that one. Make some notes and use that to build your leadership intelligence. Now, what are our key takeaways? As I already said, over-explaining tends to be much more of an anxiety response rather than clarity-based. If we want to lift our authority, then we need to do this with precise, structured language and say less. We need to say less. And we must learn to be able to tolerate some kind of disagreement, because we're going to mature much more as a leader when we're not spending a lot of time justifying ourselves. Yeah? So if what you're feeling is this kind of consistent need to prove or to justify or to soften your leadership thinking, without you even realizing it, you may be unintentionally training others to question your leadership, because, like, authority isn't something that you announce. You don't walk in the door to a meeting and say, me and my authority are here. Just don't do that. People feel it when your communication is contained, when it's deliberate, and when it's grounded. Now, this doesn't mean that it's without emotion, it's without passion. It's simply contained, it's deliberate, and it's grounded. Over-explaining, it leads to you being more thorough than you need to be. And often it takes away the responsibility that others could be feeling. And certainly, over time, what it does is it reduces your influence, it slows down decision making, it dilutes your strategic presence. So if today's conversation has made you recognize how often you're kind of filling the space instead of holding the silence, then that's a really big awareness for you to have reached. And it can be a leadership turning point for yourself. So if you want to explore how to communicate with greater precision, with confidence, and with much more impact, without being too abrupt or without feeling like you're disconnecting yourself from your people, book a conversation with me. Just reach out. You can use the QR code or you can use the link, because at the moment that you stop trying to convince the room with your over-justification is often the very moment that the room finally trusts you, because they can see what it is that you're wanting them to achieve. Yeah? So use the QR code or use the link if you want to have a conversation with me. In the meantime, questions and comments, please pop those in the platform that you're watching on today. And if it's a replay, #replay would be wonderful. It's been lovely spending some time with you talking about how you can increase your authority by over-explaining and justifying a whole heap less. See you next week. Bye now.